Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Justin Young. He is Josh Tec. Welcome to the Fast Break right here on hoopscene.com and on X, on Twitter, on YouTube, all the places you find us every single week. We appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you pushing play. We appreciate you looking at these two really handsome faces. I got to apologize right out of the gate, Josh. I am obviously not wearing the rally cap.
Yeah.
We were convinced that the reason the Braves came back and won the eighth inning in that amazing Michael Harris double play was because we both wore Braves hats. So if it all falls apart on Wednesday, and if you're watching this on Thursday, you already know what happened. This is why. And I will repent of those baseball sins, and we will have two Atlanta Braves hats on next time we do a show. So just want to address that to the baseball gods first and foremost, you know?
Yeah. I'm glad you did, because I was a little concerned. So I don't think that bodes well for the Braves tonight, but there's a 3-game series. They have another shot after this.
Well, again, not a Braves podcast. Maybe it should be, but we'll certainly see what happens and see what goes on. It's an early game out here on the West, which is really nice. So we have a lot to talk about, as we always do. It's a big weekend for some campuses. The University of Kentucky's got Big Blue Madness. That kind of leads the charge for our conversation. We're going to kind of do a couple things here in the show today. We're going to do some Fast Break Friday stuff. That's going to kind of wind down. In fact, this may be the last Fast Break Friday type of podcast we do for the season, because most of the visits have kind of happened. Schools are practicing again, and obviously high school players are getting into their practices, so we're not going to have as many visits. However, there are some big visits still as we get closer to signing day, so they will still happen. Maybe we just won't dedicate a full podcast to that. What we will do, however, there's some players that are going to make some decisions here on Friday. We're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about some reclassification and the momentous shift there is in the universe, the basketball universe, with these guys making these moves. So we're going to kind of talk about a mishmash of things right here on the podcast today. So let's start at the top. Let's talk about Kentucky. I think that's the campus of the weekend. Big Blue Madness, year in and year out, is always kind of the place that you always kind of circle on the recruiting calendar for who are they bringing in. And I'll kind of toss it to you, Josh. Who are they bringing in, and what kind of spotlight do we have on Lexington?
Well, I think this year's Big Blue Madness is highlighted by the 2025 class. I mean, At this point, with all the, we'll get into it a little bit later, but with all the reclasses, they have, some of the top 2025s in the country coming in, with Darren Peterson, Caleb Wilson, Jasper Johnson, and Darius Acuff. Plus, they have 2024 Travis Perry and 2026 Gabe Weiss coming in. So it's really a loaded class, really geared towards next year.
Yeah, that is like a USA basketball roster for the 2025.
Yeah. Seriously, like you go look through all the elite camps that happen throughout the entire year, you'll see all those guys on there.
It's interesting. Like, I was thinking about this with these classes. Obviously the Boozer twins have gone up there and they visited, and we feel pretty strongly that the Wildcats are going to be a real player there, as will Duke. But when you think about Cooper Flagg, when you think about some of these other guys in this class, Kentucky really hasn't been in there getting these visits and getting these players to really consider him like what we've seen in the years past, the number one guy. So like with Darren Peterson, Caleb Wilson, particularly two guys inside of our top 5, like those are some really impressive guys that are back into Lexington for visits, which is kind of a return back to what we've kind of come to expect for the Wildcats, these top 5 guys, these the definitive top 5 guys nonetheless. Between Caleb Wilson and Darren Peterson, if I were a crystal ball type of guy, I would feel pretty strong about Darren Peterson being maybe more of a favorite than Caleb. That's just my gut based on style of play. I love it.
Jasper Johnson's obviously
no doubt,
obviously, but he has Kentucky ties, and he has obviously been a lean for a while, at least behind the scenes.
Sure,
pegging Jasper Johnson to Kentucky.
You think they should just have Darius Acuff and Jasper Johnson throw out a ball and just play one-on-one? The first to 11 gets the spot.
That could be pretty fun. I would like to see a guy like Darius Acuff stay in the Michigan area. I just like it when people kind of stay in their regions, just because it adds more to. I feel like it just means more to those players. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, for sure. I just like the idea of going basketball fear factor and just be like, okay, listen.
Whoever loses scholarships, you're out. You're out of here. Pack your bags.
Yeah, I think that's the way that this needs to be played out here. So, well, nevertheless, Kentucky certainly is a campus of note this weekend. It's a big one there for Big Blue Madness. We saw some big stuff for other campuses over the last several weeks. But I want to kind of go through any other visits as we kind of look at our big picture list here that really kind of jump out to you, and we'll just kind of play a little grab bag.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the visits that most stands out to me is Patrick Gongba going to UConn. UConn is also having I believe they're having their like, version of Big Blue Madness, and then them bringing Patrick Gongba on campus for that. That's, that says a lot to where, their priorities are. They're, very much in the mix for Cooper Flag. They've already gotten Ahmad Noel. So Patrick Gongba would be a really nice addition to that class if they can get everybody together.
And we love that guy. We think he's tremendous. One of our most favorite, true 5 men there is in the class.
Yeah, he's been a late riser too. Well, not late, but a late spring riser. So his trajectory is still trending upward.
Yeah, his game certainly fits the way that Coach Early wants to play there in Storrs, Connecticut, for sure. I'm going to throw it out there. I think Jaden Quaintance to Florida is a really significant one as well. Another 5-star guy, another big guy, really true big guy there is in the class. Florida missed out on R.J. Jones, and they're obviously going to take a swing for the fences with Jaden Quaintance. Tremendous player and a huge upside guy, no question about it, in this class.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really eyeballing Jaden Quaintance's visit next weekend.
Where's he going next? Remind me.
He's going to Kentucky.
He's going to Kentucky. Yeah, he's going to Kentucky. Okay, there you go. So whatever I said earlier about the elite of the elite not visiting, they're certainly making up for it this year with some visits here on the back end. A couple other ones. Florida State's going to have some big ones coming in. Cam Ward's going to be coming into town. So is Kyan Anthony, the son of Carmelo Anthony, who ironically is taking a visit to Syracuse next week himself. So that's something to keep an eye on for next week. But Florida State with some big ones. They've got some other underclassmen coming into town as well, to Tallahassee. Just kind of looking at our list as well. There's a lot of them. Casimir Chavis visiting Washington's a really juicy one. I really, really like the idea of Daniel Jacobson visiting Wisconsin, another 7'2" guy. The Badgers are going to be messing around with. I think he visited Purdue, if I'm not mistaken. Anybody else on this list that jumping out to you?
I mean, we have Sadiq White, 2025, going to South Carolina, just another in his backyard-ish kind of place to visit. The North Carolina native, just taking his trip down. Yeah. What is it, I-85 to South Carolina? So I think that's one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one a lot. We've got on our list David Punch to Xavier taking a visit. That's what's been reported. Yeah, I mean, it's solid. I feel like we've had a lot. Oh, Jason Sonnen is visiting Alabama in the 2025 class. KJ Green also is going to be scheduled to be there in South Carolina. So some juicy ones, no less. Trey McKinney to Rutgers. But, yeah, we'll kind of keep our eyes and see what happens here this weekend. And one of the reasons why is we are going to have a lot of guys make commitments on Friday. We'll get into that. You know what? Let's actually get into that right now. We'll talk about the reclassification as we wrap things up here on the show. So Friday is going to be a big day. We're going to have a lot of commitments on Friday. We're going to kind of go through our list of stuff that we've kind of gathered, and we'll talk about each of them. Let's actually start before Friday. Rakees Passmore is making his decision. Today's Wednesday when we record this. He's making his decision later today. So I guess we need to put this out on Wednesday now that I think about it. But he's down to 3 schools. It's down to Kansas, Oklahoma, and LSU. And all signs seem to really point that KU is going to be the real winner here with LeBaron Phelan already on board. And also Flory Badunga already on board. Tremendous class if this is where he decides to go. But let's actually rewind it back a little bit more. Justin Byerly and I are going to get on a show tomorrow to talk a little bit more about his decision. But the first time you saw Rakees Passmore, what was your first impression of him when you saw him play?
Well, it was at, I believe, our South Carolina preview camp.
Yeah, sounds right.
And it was just like, wow, this guy is kind of flying under the radar a little bit. And Byerly's the guy that was kind of pointing him out to me, being like, you need to watch this guy. You need to watch this guy. And at that point in time, he was flying under the radar. And then throughout the next year or so, you kind of saw his rise to being a top 50-ish kind of guy that he is now. And then, now he's, taking visits to Kansas and potentially committing to the Jayhawks, which is one of the more, the blue blood programs of the college basketball world. So,
yeah, if it happens, like I said, JB and I will talk more about it on Thursday. But man, LeBaron Phelan and Rakees Passmore will be an absolute headache for opposing coaches trying to stop that type of scoring.
Yeah.
And then you got Flory Badunga down low, just grabbing every rebound for any missed shots they happen to do. So a big one there going to be happening on Wednesday. I think we're both crystal ball in Kansas there as well. Trent Perry, a guy that we've talked about quite a bit here on the show, a guy that we love out of Harvard Westlake out in Los Angeles area, is going to be making his decision on Friday. Here's who he's down to. Okay, I'll kind of run through his schools. Gonzaga, Colorado, TCU, Stanford, Oregon, and Southern Cal, USC. I've always said watch out for Colorado.
Yeah.
I've said that from day one. I still feel pretty strongly about that. I think Gonzaga certainly jumped up the list pretty quickly. I'm really curious to see what happens there. Stanford, culturally makes a lot of sense. He really fits the style of the type of player that Stanford wants to bring in. But Trent Perry, to me, I think is one of the most important guys there is in this class for all these schools listed on his list. But I'm still kind of putting my guess onto Colorado. What about you?
I kind of feel like I would have to go with Gonzaga because I don't feel like Gonzaga's gotten really any big prospects right now. That is to my knowledge. Maybe I'm forgetting somebody. But right now it feels like Gonzaga's had a pretty quiet recruiting class. And I think Trent Perry is the guy that would really fit that program really well.
Yeah, certainly would. I feel like they're going to be a program that always kind of lands on those high-level transfers as well. Something to kind of keep your eyes on that one as well. Chase McCarty, one of our favorites as well from the state of Alabama. I know I keep saying as well. If you're playing as well bingo, you certainly won already. Chase McCarty from IMG out of the state of Alabama is making his decision on Friday. Here's who he's down to: Missouri, Georgia Tech, Houston, Kansas, Tennessee, and Texas Tech. So we can probably play a little bit of addition by subtraction or subtraction by addition and figure out one of those schools probably won't be the player there. And I'll throw it to you. I'll let you kind of make the first pick. Who would you guess is where Chase McCarty is going to go to college?
Damn. I honestly don't know. I guess I kind of just am assuming Missouri because of the way they're recruiting right now,
Yeah, fair. I think Texas Tech, we talked about them getting a visit kind of late, was kind of like, oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think you really pay close attention to that. Houston is always a school that, especially for Chase McCarty's style of play, you got to watch. The academic element, Georgia Tech certainly is a player. Tennessee might be a sleeper. I don't have a gut feeling on this one either.
Neither do I. I just go with Missouri because they're just kind of hot right now, and I think that they could get this done.
I think deep down inside of my recruiting brain, I would keep a close watch of these Texas schools, Texas Tech and Houston.
Yeah,
might be interesting to keep your eyes on. But if Georgia Tech pulled it off again, and we've talked about this before.
Yeah, they're also in there.
I feel like they're kind of a little quiet, but man, I feel like they're on the cusp of really kind of pulling off some real studs as well. He's not committing on Friday, but he's down to these two, and that's Trey Johnson, one of the best guards there is in the country. He's going to stay in state. He's going to play for either Baylor or he's going to play for Texas. The Dallas area native. I guess he's at Link now, but played at Lake Highlands High School in the Dallas area. That's it. That's who he's down to. It's just those two schools. Can't go wrong with either one. Guards have had a lot of success under Scott Drew and Waco, and certainly Texas is not messing around with Rodney Terry there, and they're pulling in some absolute studs, pulling in a lot of talent, and be curious to see what you think on this one.
I'm leaning Texas here. I just feel like that's just they're kind of the hot. They're like once again, they're a hot program right now. They've got a lot of momentum with recruiting. I feel like that is the big brand in Texas, obviously. So that's that's just kind of where I'm leaning for a Texas kid.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Texas has a lot of momentum going on.
But then, I think about it, Keontae George went to Baylor, and he's a very potent scorer, just like Trey Johnson. So
I do wonder if Jerome Tang was still an assistant coach at Baylor, would Trey Johnson be more flipping there? Furthermore, as we were talking about this, I was a little surprised that maybe Kansas State wasn't a bigger player there.
That is kind of surprising. I thought Kansas State would definitely have more. They could fit into a top three.
Yeah, absolutely. So all these guys making decisions certainly make an impact on the rest of the class as we kind of see these classes come together. National Signing Day is less than a month away, so we're really inching closer and closer to that as we're seeing classes get formulated. So Friday's a big one. There's something to keep your eyes on where guys make decisions and where they head to. So it would be really fun to see what happens from there. And then again, guys still on the board. VJ Edgecombe is another player. He's scheduled to take a visit to Michigan, but he's another player that we're going to see where he goes. One of the top, 5 guys there is in the class.
I think he's going to Duke next weekend for their big countdown to craziness or whatever. So
that sounds right. That sounds right. I'm kind of pulling our list up to see. He is going to be there. Patrick, their big weekend for Duke next weekend as well. So we'll talk more about that, of course, on hoopsing.com. But listen, we've had some major flips, if you will. We talked about Cooper Flagg making the move up now to the 24 class, which now he's the number one guy in the 24 class. And now AJ DeBonsa is moving up from the 26 class to the 25 class, which kind of shakes some stuff up there. Where now I think he moves back into the number one spot. And his high school teammate at Prolific Prep, Tyron Stokes, now is the number one guy. probably in the 2026 class. So, man, a lot of moving and shaking. And the only thing that I really thought about when I heard this news today was, man, these guys are just getting to the NBA quicker. It's just a fast the NBA. And both of these guys, quite frankly, could be and more than likely should be the number one pick in the respective drafts. If it were happening today, I think both of those guys are number one picks and shake hands with Adam Silver as the number one overall player taking these drafts. So, it does shake some stuff up. Well, it'll be interesting to see this weekend at the Border League. There's a potential matchup with AJ DeBonsa playing the Boozers and Columbus High School. So right now, Cameron Boozer, I love Cameron Boozer. Always have loved Cameron Boozer. But really excited to see that matchup with those two guys going head to head. Not that is going to impact too much, but I would like to see that type of talent. And potentially Cooper Flagg is on the other side of the bracket too. So we get to have some high-level matchup with some high-level players coming up this weekend. But do you have any thoughts on these reclassifications and what do you think it does, the impact? And, do you feel like it impacts recruiting much at all with these guys making these moves?
I mean, a little bit I think it does, like not even a little bit, a lot of it, because it at one point in time, we were considering Cooper Flagg favored to Duke and we were considering Cameron Boozer favored to Duke. So that means Cooper Flagg moves up. That means in that hypothetical, the Duke world, Cooper Flagg can go to Duke in 2024. He's out by the time Boozer comes in. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
That instead of there being like a clash there, it just kind of opens up a door for one to go to, one to come in 1 year, one to come in the next year. And then, this year, I guess like if Kentucky is a major player for the Boozers, what does that mean for AJ? You know what I'm saying? Like, does that mean anything for AJ? Because, Kentucky's probably going to try and, at least jump in on him in some regard. I mean, so it's just kind of like, what does this mean for him? What does this mean for them? So yeah, it does really impact recruiting in that sense. Like, you don't want to double up in the same position, or if you do, then you're just really hoarding a lot of talent, which is going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
And then also, it's just kind of cool to think about, like, okay, let's say like we put AJ number one, and then we put Tyron Stokes number one. Now we can have that discussion, and Prolific Prep can talk about this as well. They have number one in 25 and 26.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think Montverde had that when Cade Cunningham was there. Who was it with him? I'd have to go back and look, but yeah, that doesn't happen very often, right?
Yeah,
hardly at all. So, listen, I'm a big NBA guy. I just love the fact these guys are going to get to the NBA a little faster. I'd love to see them go straight from high school to the NBA, but that's neither here nor there. Really, the big thing we may need to watch is whether or not AJ goes to professional ranks or if he goes to college ultimately.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and that's a guy that at least I don't personally have any kind of feel on where he's kind of where his mindset is at in that regard. Like, I believe that I saw a report that he promised his mother that he would go to at least 1 year of college. So I think that's like very much on the table, but I just don't even have an idea of what schools are recruiting him or, this, that, and the other. I can assume that everybody is going to want to recruit him, but I guess it's maybe because he was a 2026 that wasn't on the forefront of my mind, but maybe now that he's a 2025, then we'll start to see that materialize some more.
I would love if he just goes like off grid and like picks somewhere like Georgetown, right? Like an existing relationship with Ed Cooley from his time up in Providence, like from the Northeast, and like pick somewhere that's different, revitalizes that program, gives them a superstar, player to really change things up. I would love to see that. I'm just a contrarian, I suppose. I would love to see some shakeup in college basketball.
I mean, we've been seeing it. I feel like
yeah, we have.
We just talked about Missouri being one of the high ranked classes. So we've been seeing that. And it's not off the table at this point. Like, we've been really favoring, or maybe not favoring, but like really kind of leaning into Cooper Flagg potentially going to UConn. So like there's a whole lot of that kind of different, just kind of a little bit of different schools winning recruiting battles. Like Cincinnati's been taking big swings, all this kind of stuff. So like I really like that. And I mean that wouldn't be off the table, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to kind of pack in a lot of stuff to this kind of this random Fast Break Friday on a Wednesday now, I guess. We'll have more tomorrow on Marquise Passmore's decision coming up. And, of course, Friday, a lot of guys making moves with where they're going to go to school. So keep your eyes peeled to the Twitters and the X's and all the places to find recruiting news. We're going to talk about it again, I'm sure, on Monday in our commitment catch-up. But Josh, was good stuff. Big weekend in Kentucky. Enjoy the Braves game, man. Let's hope we're talking about the Braves moving on.
I would love to be talking on Monday when we talk about commitment catch-up. I would love to be talking about the Braves moving on.
Braves and D-backs? Can we make that happen? A JY special?
That would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool. For Josh Tech, I'm Justin Young. We're baseball guys now, apparently. Thanks for watching. We'll see you Monday as we get into these big commitments. We'll see you then.